Okay, I'd like to call this special board meeting in order. Roll call.
Mr. Ballard?
Here.
Mr. Demakia?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson? Mr. Sturgill?
Here.
Mr. Williams?
Here.
Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
What time is it? Right on 5 o'clock. This might be the first meeting started right on time. Recognition of visitors.
Nothing from the public?
Beautiful, nothing from the public. Okay, need a motion to approve or amend and sign the minutes?
So moved. Support.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
Mr. Ballard?
Yes.
Mr. Demakia?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Any old business? Report and recommendations of the treasurer.
I got a few things for you. As we discussed a little bit prior, we did get the letter officially releasing us from fiscal caution. It's kind of a long time coming, but it's good to not have to do those monthly reports now. And then the next piece is, and I got this earlier today, but the ballot language, the first resolution that I will put on for the June 18th meeting, but I wanted to get it to you guys ahead of time so you could take a peek at it, look through it. And then also, the email that's attached to it also outlines kind of the process that we're going to go through. It gives, the dates in here are like absolute deadline dates, whereas we'll still take the June 18th approach for first resolution. Second resolution we'll do in one of the meetings in July. So, and there's not any questions on those two pieces, I'll move into the forecast.
I just want to make it, I know there was some conversation about the letter from ODE about us being fiscally solvent, is their terminology. But I do want to say that's been for several years now. This is nothing new for us. And again, there was a time that we were in a fiscal crisis in this district. And it was some tough times where we had a lot of layoffs and cut programs. And, due to the cooperation of all of our unions, due to the cooperation of our staff, and, a lot of people giving back in contractual negotiations due to, some of the efforts that the former administration and administration before that, as well as the Board of Education. I think this finally, I think we all agree that this should have happened probably maybe 3 years ago. But I am glad to get the letter. But again, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention all the people in this district that, made this possible, getting us to where we need to be financially, reducing that RIF list down to 0 from as many people that were on it at one point in time. I mean, it wasn't an easy process, but we certainly got there with a lot of sacrifices and a lot of cooperation from everybody in this district. So I am glad to get the letter, although I don't agree with the timing of it. I think we should have gotten it a lot sooner.
Yes, you should send a copy to Dale.
Yeah, Dale should
good
get a
point.
copy of this.
He'd love it.
He put a lot of work in towards this, so, Dale did some good work in this district, and he was an excellent treasurer.
Was this judged on this year's 5-year forecast or last year's 5-year forecast?
This would have been, he waited for May to officially release it, so he did get this current one.
He has the,
Yeah, he has the current one. He said pending, pending the May forecast, he was going to release us, and then he got the May forecast and officially signed off on it. So, but yeah, Dale had been trying for years to get this to happen, so it's good to see it happen.
Any other comments on that? And the only thing I would say about the elephant in the room with your other document is assuming that there will be a levy on the ballot. We really haven't had a discussion as far as the Board of Education is concerned about a levy. I know there's been a lot of speculation and assumptions and other conversations. I know that the citizens of Lorain Schools has been working with Bambi Dillon and that group of folks on trying to think of ways to start a campaign or what they need to do to help get a levy passed, assuming that it is on the ballot. I don't know if this is the proper time. You know, Josh did bring it up with some ballot language and some options. We do know that we have 3 opportunities to do it if we are going to do it. And I know that, you know, the situation in the district is something that is in serious consideration for me when I think about putting a levy out there. I am a taxpayer. I'm a parent of a Lorain City School couple Lorain City School students, and you know, although those are 2 separate roles for me, I still have to make a decision as a Board of Education member, and you know, that's my role here today. So, you know, I'm just going to open up the floor to anybody else. I don't know if we want to have this discussion, if we're prepared to have this discussion. I just thought since he brought it up, I'd bring it up to you guys.
I think being in a meeting, sooner or later, we've got to have that meeting to discuss if we're prepared to have this conversation. So I see the date is June the 18th. Help me understand what the effectiveness of that date.
That is just when I'll put the first resolution on, and that is basically me coming to you and asking for authority, permission to take it to the auditor to have them certify the values. So that's just one of 2 resolutions.
Okay.
So basically, you guys have the opportunity to vote yea or nay on either one of the resolutions, and if you voted no to either one of them, that would kind of stop it in its tracks.
So
From going on the ballot in
From going on
November
the
of
ballot.
2018.
Yeah.
So it has to go on our agenda, though, and you just decide when it's going to go on our agenda to have that vote?
Well, I did it just based on timing, because with having 2 resolutions, I didn't want to try and cram them all for the purpose of conversation and discussion, give us enough time in between to where, you know, once we get the certification resolution from the first one, then we would bring it back, and the second resolution is basically voting on truly physically putting it on. The first resolution gives us authority to certify it. The second resolution gives me the authority to then put it to the Board of Elections to put it on the ballot.
How long does the
So-
certification last?
You do it so this is good for November. We'd have to go through and do the certification again. It won't for next year. So each
So we
time.
basically have November, and we have the spring, and then the following November.
Well, we can do 3, and I believe there's 3 elections next year. So we can do,
Okay.
there's 4 elections total, we can do 3 of the 4.
Here's now I have more conversation in the public about our levy, about this levy that needs to go on than we do in these meetings. And I'm still not certain if we've gotten all the information that we need to truly make the decision. I guess I'm asking you, Mr. President, have we received as much information to make that judgment?
I mean, if you're asking me that, have I received all the information I requested, the answer is
Have you received
no.
all the information that you requested?
Answer is no to that, but what I will say is, you know, you look at our 5-year forecast and you look at our fiscal status in this district, and that renewal is about that. But what I'm concerned is at the level of spending, at the level of administrative increases that I've seen. And again, you know, I'm not sure what the status of the district would be without a renewal, let alone with it. You know, I certainly understand the 5-year forecast. We've been doing this a long time. You know what I mean? But when I see things going on in the district and I see pay increases for central office folks as well as principals, and can we sustain that spending? When I see spending on, you know, these private firms to do work that people used to do, you know, I'm not sure, and I don't know what the direction of the district is going when we look at that kind of spending. So to answer your question, for me, you know, again, I sat here and I voted with everybody on that no confidence of the direction of the district and and our CEO. And I did that because I don't believe in where we are at currently and the direction we're moving in. But it makes it extremely difficult. There is a double-edged sword, to be honest with you. On one side of the sword, where does not having a renewal put the status of the district? And that's, at some point in time, has to be an easy question, But on the other side of it is, how can I responsibly go to the community and ask them to continue putting money into the school district when I myself is uncertain on how the spending practices are going to be going on moving forward. So it's a very difficult decision that we have to make. Me personally, I've been through cuts in this district. I was part of, and I approved cutting some athletics in this district and some programs. And I could tell you right now that as a board member, I will never approve to cut those programs ever again because I see what it does to children and kids. So I understand what the cuts do and what happens when you don't have enough money to sustain. But when we're spending money on administration, we're spending money in places where are outside of the classroom and not on children, again, for me, it's hard for me to responsibly go and say, you know what, I would vote yes for a levy, and I myself would never vote no against a levy, and I never thought I'd ever consider voting no. But if I had to go to the ballot today and vote on a levy, I'm not sure what I would do, to be honest with you. But as far as the information, I've made several public records requests, and I'm not just talking about what I've made towards you, I'm talking about what I've made to this district. And no, I have not received all the information that I've requested. And again, I've been fatigued in that process, so, but I will say Josh has given us some financial information, and what I would like to see, and I don't know if you could do that, is Dale used to do some financial modeling of, putting up our status of this district, and this is what it'll look like with a renewal, this is what it will look like without a renewal, you know what I mean? This is what it'll look like when we, spend $5 million on administration as opposed to the class, I'm just kidding, but you understand what I'm saying? I'm not certain. I understand a 5-year forecast, but again, it's a double-edged sword and a very difficult.
Are you allowed to share
decision.
that information with us, the modeling examples that he's referring to?
Well, the forecast itself does account for that. That's
Okay.
why I'm not sure what models or what Dale provided. I mean, I can try and find it, but to be honest, a lot of his stuff he took with him. So, but
In a tablet under his arm.
he never used a tablet.
He has it in his
He's got
golf
his
bag
boxes
right
of
now.
I
papers.
understand.
In addition to that, or supplementing that, we have certain amounts of financial information. But what we don't have contextually is, so here's what we're adding, what we're changing.
Mhm.
We haven't had the opportunity to ask any questions around that. So whether we understand it or not, and you can only get that through asking questions. I mean, you give me paper and numbers, I look at paper and numbers and I ask this and I ask that and I say, well, what does this mean? I know that, and it's not, I don't know if it's true or not, I've heard that there will be, how many new administrators at the high school?
There will be a total of 21 administrators.
And I don't know if that's.
The way their new model.
Yeah. So in that new
is-
model, is this additional, is this
I
changing?
don't know how many actually is additional. I couldn't tell you exactly how many administrators we have right now. Okay, I know I don't think we have 21. And I know there has to be an increase because of the way.
Well, and then a lot of things,
the
I
way
mean,
this
there's
is set
certain
up,
things that we're
but-
gonna save money because
Yeah.
we're cutting.
There's a lot of realigning, and 21 seems high off the top of my head.
I must say all those are new.
Huh?
Katie, would you explain to us what's going on at finances please, in the district?
She meets with the CEO more than we do.
We're asking these kind of questions, whatever, and well, I don't know, there's 21 that seems high, and then somebody who says, no, I counted 20. Those are the kind of questions, and it's not that you have all the answers or anybody does, but that's the kind of clarity you get through discussion.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And so we have a budget that's not really purely discussed. You have the numbers, but a lot of these numbers you didn't create. You didn't organize, you know, so.
And their projections.
Yeah, so again, I just think that reasonably speaking, there's lots of dialogue around this that should happen, so that people have some clarification, understanding. If someone were to ask me questions, I can't give them any understanding. And so what I seek as a board member is to understand budgeting, to understand the direction. I understand that we're no longer going to be doing New Beginnings. So I'm assuming there's some savings in that facility piece. But then, what does that mean? You know, so we save here, but we have to add these pieces here. So again, we haven't had the opportunity to really have those kinds of enlightening discussions.
Aren't we currently under lease, though, with the New Beginnings project at St. Mary's?
I think that was year by year.
It was year by year.
We had the
And
first
they-
2 years, and then it was, yeah. So I'm sure and they've had their 100, I don't know how many days' notice they needed, but I'm assuming it's all been provided adequately.
Correct.
But we're just speculating about that. It's not that we know that because we've been told or we've been briefed. We kind of assume that somebody let them know we're not coming back. And so, I mean, if we're going to make these decisions based on assumptions and, but not based on real accurate communicating information, yeah, it's a tough place to go. So,
Well,
Josh?
I can supply you guys with, because I know that model, the one you're referring to, was the one he released in the town hall. And from my understanding is, and again, we've had the discussions, it's more so about putting hard numbers to, as people are hired and filling in the gaps. I mean,
And that,
and I can estimate based on,
I don't mean to cut you off, but
Yeah.
that's also a problem for me, right? You're the treasurer. You're the guy that approves the budget. You're the guy that's supposed to say, listen, you either have the money or you don't have the money. But yet you don't get that choice because they're dictating to you, here, plug this into the budget because this is what we're spending. I don't need to come to you for approval and get that. There's no accountability.
but at
You
no
understand
point-
what I'm saying?
It's not that I'm not involved in the discussions. At no point does it ever come to the point of we're adding to the budget. Everything's kind of geared as, okay, we're adding this position, but this position is not coming back, or this position is transitioning to this position. So like for the high school, we're transitioning quite a few administrators over. That 21 then would factor in, you're talking about career tech, you're talking about,
Yeah, there could be.
it's all the
Well,
5
listen,
academies, so the model
I'm
itself
sure that it's there,
changed.
but again, you just said, before the 21 number was crystallized, you weren't sure about the 21 number. What I'm saying is just based on these small conversations, we all need to know more with a certain kind of confidence. I don't,
Here's what I would want to know. How many are new? That's the bottom line. How many are new? It is that simple. And like I said, I know that if we went and sat and listened at 6 o'clock, that he's going to roll out his new model, and he's probably, maybe there's a flow chart somewhere that tells you who's going to be in what. I mean, something that is viable, something you can see, and while I'm saying this, I wanted to say this. We used to receive every month from Dale, it said some budget, FinSum, check registry. We don't receive that anymore. And isn't that what you said, that we was going to get
No, the monthly financials, it's all available. You're emailing them along with,
monthly?
'cause, yeah,
Did I
well, it
miss
goes
it?
on the website, but
Oh, it's on the
and
website.
I'm sorry, I'm just getting too many questions. I'm getting too many, are you emailing them? I mean, the fact that you're asking the question
Yeah.
is absurd. Either,
well, no, those documents are out there to the public.
Right,
and-
but again-
And we had brought them to you prior
But we're
meetings, and we
not-
said,
But the public's not the one that got to make the decision
Yeah.
on putting the levy on the ballot or not. You understand? And the question I would have to add to this whole conversation is, so what did we cut to support the administrative increases in the positions he just hired? And you, and I know you're in a tough spot, right? I get your position, but you don't have that answer for me, and I have to look at myself and say, so not knowing what he did to support those additional administrative salaries, I'm supposed to go to the community and say, you know what, I want you to keep giving the money to this district because it's going to kids when I don't feel it's going to kids. You know what I'm saying? Because nobody can answer that question. So if it's, everything's, in the buzzword is revenue neutral, everything's revenue, we're just shifting things around, we're just, and that's just spinning things, you know what I mean? I've been around the school finance long enough as a board member and dealing with folks like you and Dale Weber and even Kaufman, what was, I can't remember, great guy, but even him, and I get the school finance part of it, but when we have questions like that and we can't get the answers to those, I don't know what people expect us to do. You know, we have to make a responsible, knowledgeable, informed decision on coming to the community and saying, you know what, we really do need you to support these children in this school district. And that's what these levies should be about, going to the kids in the classroom. But it's not. There has not been anything that has anything to do with children in the last year
And that
so far that
quality
I've
of
seen.
information should be provided in a context that's not adversarial.
No, not at all.
It's not,
Yeah.
we gotta ask to get. I mean, that's the fact that if I have to ask 6 questions to get an answer, that's, normally this is a presentation format where we're discussing, where we're dialogue, where it's not like all of a sudden, oh, here it all is. Here, just eat all that at one time. So over the, and I think it's gonna be, yeah, I understand we have, everything is date sensitive also. So what happens is the date sensitive nature is what's driving us here, as opposed to this is a natural evolution of sharing of information. So what we're doing now, and maybe we're going to get answers to some things, to more things, because not because it's providing information, but because the date sensitivity of it. We're not getting it because we asked. We're going to finally get it, more of it, because the date sensitive nature of it. And I guess if people want to roll dice like that, that's not a way of communicating around issues, especially fiscal issues.
Which admin? I mean, you say admin, are we talking principals, are we talking
We don't even
So-
know.
central office?
What you're telling me is, there were 7 positions put in central office. Were those increases in salary from the people that formerly sat in those positions?
There were some new people brought in, some people that had left, and then there was,
But Josh, that's a yes or no, right? Were they additional, was it an increase in anybody's salary in central office?
was there increases? Sure.
Okay. Was there increases in principals? People that got brought in, I've seen the salaries, people that got brought in, I'm not going to get into the unqualified status, and people that left, and people are getting paid more money in those positions than the people that were there before. Correct?
Not across the board.
I didn't say across the
Yeah.
board. See,
Well,
you know
no,
what I mean?
that's what I'm saying.
And
Are you
this
talking
is-
about overall number of,
I mean, I don't want to get into a real big debate about this, but we've come into a culture and climate that it is acceptable to spin to the public what is going on. And I'm not saying you,
no.
but in
Well,
general,
And the only
this is
reason
what,
the only reason I ask follow-up questions is because there are new titles completely. The way the old format was set up, you had principals, you had assistant principals,
the
you
old,
had.
I mean, listen, the old format, the new format, we're in an education system, right? We have building administrators that are charged with the responsibility of overseeing that building and those teachers in that building, making sure that things are happening in the classroom that should be happening for our children, right?
Correct.
I mean, I don't care, new format, old format. Listen, the head of that building is a principal. I don't care what title you give it to them. Those people, some of them, are making more money than the people that were formerly there. And other principals left a building and are making more money in another building in the same position. I've seen the salaries, right? And again, I just want to say publicly that, Josh, you are in a difficult position, right? And I certainly understand that. And
But I
unfortunately
will-
for this board, you're the only resource we have to come ask the
completely
questions. And
understand.
I know that you're not going to have all the questions, but that's exactly the point here is when we have questions, to have a legitimate conversation about putting a levy out there, we don't have resources giving us the answers, except for one, and that's you. Because you're the only one that sits at this table with us, besides Ally, and we do appreciate both of you guys. But you understand what I'm saying?
Oh, I completely
It's
understand.
very, very difficult to make decisions. The one authority that this Board of Education really has is to deal with levies under this current ridiculous legislation, right? So how do we deal with that when we can't get legitimate questions answered about what is going on in the district? And I don't want a spin-off. I don't want some pretty philosophy on the new format versus the old format. I don't, that's not what, I just want plain, straight-out answers like we used to get when we needed to talk about financial matters in this district. You know what I mean?
The one thing I will say is principals, old principals, new principals, principals versus turnaround principals, like you said, it's the same thing, still a building administrator. Salaries did not increase for principal to turnaround principal. They did not. There was some that have come on board that were not previously here. There are some principals that are leaving.
And
there
were
are
those
some-
salaries higher than the ones that were here?
No, because the ones that are still currently here, that are moving buildings, like you had said, the increase they received going to that other building is the increase that they were receiving in the LAA agreement regardless. They did get an increase, but it was the increase per the LAA agreement. Nobody received any additional increase beyond the LAA agreement,
I'd have to see that.
truthfully.
I know I'd have to see that because I've never seen that many administrators get raises all at the same time under any negotiated contract. And I've negotiated and been part of those negotiations for the last 11 years. You know what I mean? So
But the bigger part
it's
is,
just
isn't
ironic.
each school building getting 2 additional leads in that school, though, from,
The model is that, yes, they are getting deans, which in some cases, one set of deans are being offset by the assistant principals,
okay.
and then the other set of deans would flow into title funds. So it's to support.
The
and
title
that's
funds, what are title funds used for?
To support education, just like, I mean,
Specifically the classroom and students, correct?
yeah.
And
it's
it's
the
only a
classroom
certain
support.
percentage of title funds can be used for administration, just like any government funding. You can't just take
Mm-hmm.
Title I funding and put it all towards administrative salaries. That would be highly illegal and unacceptable as far
Mm-hmm. Oh, you
as.
can't put all of it now. There is a certain percentage.
So then, a certain percentage of that salary of that second dean has to come from someplace, which would be the general fund.
If, yes, whatever Title I can support, whatever will not, would be offset by the general fund, that's correct.
Correct. But that's not how it was spun. It was spun that these deans are going to be supported by title funding, period. But that's not the legitimate, real truth of the case, right? Because only a certain percentage of those administrative salaries can be supported by title funds.
Well, and it's not even that pool of money, title, like you know, like I've said a million times, is shrinking year to year. So, I mean, there's a good portion of what was funded prior couldn't have been funded next year anyways, because the
right.
pot
It's-
keeps shrinking.
And it's only my personal opinion, but I would rather use title funding for wraparound services to support children than a third administrator in a school building.
Well, and that's what that
And that's
third,
just my opinion.
but that's what the third administrator is for. It's family culture. And that is for that wraparound service piece. It's to
Man,
support that wraparound service.
I'm not
I
going
only
to,
spend time and energy kind of talking about this because it is a big topic in our community.
Oh, of course it is.
And this board has to come to a conclusion on what we're going to do to kind of get this cliffhanger to some level of a outcome. And sooner than later, we owe the community an explanation on us passing a levy or putting a levy on, or whatever we're going to decide. At some point, we've got to make that reason known, and I think it needs to be well thought out and pretty reasonable. Because the questions that I'm getting hit from all different angles with it. and rightly so. And it's a shame that they come to their elected officials and we can't give them a clear answer because we can't get clear information. I mean, there's an entire committee out there
Well, I'd
that's
be,
got their engine revved up to either go or not, and we can't give them an answer.
and I'd be happy to answer those questions as you get them. I mean, truthfully, I know the direction of the culture, why the Dean of Family Culture was brought in, and it's for that, almost taking that wraparound service model a step further.
It's,
And it's looking at how to properly support the buildings and having that,
but it's really not, though. Because if it were, then we'd be putting people with those types of backgrounds in those positions, but we're not. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, if we were truly focused on wraparound services, we would be putting people with backgrounds and resumes that have done that type of work to fulfill that wraparound service. And we're not. And again, that's not for you.
No.
Right? You're a finance guy for us. You know what I'm saying? I'm just making a point. That's all I'm doing.
it seems like, from what I've seen, that would be the case, that they are, but again, I can't speak to that. I didn't do the hiring.
know.
I'm not,
So I just want to be clear to everybody in the room that I'm not putting him on the spot. He's my punching bag right now.
always. But no, I'd be happy, as you get those questions, you can either forward them through email or bring them here. I'll answer them the best I can, honestly.
Sure.
I'm involved to a certain point with the culture piece. I'm involved a certain point to academics, and probably more than I have been in the past. But
Because you're
truthfully, that's still
Chief
not
of
my,
Innovation and Strategy.
correct.
Right? I got it. See, I know your title.
I've got one more question. Last year, after you did the closeout in June, into June, when you did that closeout, okay, you told us there was a $6 million carryover. Will you let us know what the carryover is this year?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm not, and that's the thing, I think we need to hammer down exactly how, I printed off the big packets and I started doing all the CEO approvals for you guys for, I think it was 2 meetings in a row, and then the topic came up of why are we killing all these trees, because I was handing you guys a stack of papers this big every meeting. And then on top of it, I don't want it to just be, here's the information and slide you a piece of paper.
So far, we've gotten stacks of paper.
Yeah, I want to be able to
It's
answer
like, I don't know what
questions
the
for
heck
you
it
guys,
is.
so having these discussions, I don't mind. But I also would like, it's the give and take. If you guys can get me the questions ahead of time, I can try and prepare the information for you, and we can have the discussions out in public at the meetings. But then also, I don't want to have to give you a large stack of papers. I'll send those to you electronically, and to be honest, it probably makes more sense, and I just want to finalize exactly how you guys want it. We can get in the habit of emailing them to you, and not because I'm trying to paper push, but more so I'm trying to save paper. I don't want to have to give you guys a stack of paper, and a stack of paper that, to be honest, it's a lot of information. I don't know, without any conversation, and to go through that would take probably a work session, a whole day work session.
Is we're trying to, where with certain process, this can be efficient, we're trying to approach it in a very inefficient manner.
I agree.
So.
And we have to find a way to connect
Yeah.
those dots again. In the past, everything was brought in front of you guys in regards to hirings
Right,
and all
In the
that.
past, there was a process.
Yeah.
Regardless of what all the content was. The context
Is what you guys want,
is.
is that
The
content.
context was communication.
Yes.
The context was the availability of information and the ability to gain understanding of the information. What we're in a process right now doesn't contribute to that in any kind of an efficient manner. So what we're going to do is, again, if it weren't for the date sensitivity of this, quite honestly, I don't even know if we're in this phase of conversation. Because everybody from year end and beyond is aware of this date piece. So now all of a sudden, when this hasn't been the mindset of sharing for the last 8 months. So, the reality is we're getting more information shared, and what's very exposed is this is a very inefficient way of doing it. But the really the only reason why it's happening is because we have this date that people have urgency about. And what happens is we've had urgency about processing information for a long time without response to it. And so now, here's this new urgency, which means it needs immediate attention.
I don't know that that's, I don't think that's a fair statement, for the fact of,
But it's an accurate statement. And if you can tell me it's not, if you can tell me that
I-
we've been having an efficient process
Well, no,
of
no,
sharing information for
that-
8 months.
that part of it is, yes, there's
Okay.
been a breakdown of communication, I agree
No,
100%.
there's not been a breakdown.
Yeah.
There's been a,
Refusal.
there's been a intentional absence of, a breakdown is when I'm driving and the tire goes flat. This is not a breakdown. This is, so we've had 8 months of non-communication by intention, not from your part,
No, yeah.
but from all of us collectively, and with no urgency to address it.
Yeah,
And now we have an urgency because there's a date. In all of our meetings, this is the first time we've been approached recently, right? Why? Because we have this impending deadline. Yeah, so?
but I think, so there's two pieces. The second piece is, there's no urgency in regards to this with the date. I would have brought this to you guys regardless if the CEO is here or not here, if we were in academic emergency, not. I mean, these would be the same dates in regards to that end of it.
And you'd have brought those to us with full knowledge that the body of information.
We
had been
already had the
shared. So,
information
yeah,
we needed
right.
Well,
to get
because it
there.
would've came in front of you guys.
So let's
Yeah.
be
For
really
approval.
accurate about it. What would happen is the previous process would have meant that all these conversations, all this ongoing understanding, knowledge, confidence, blah, 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 would have already been occurring. It wouldn't have been occurring.
Oh, yeah, because
Yeah.
it would have came in front of you guys for
Yes.
approval, so it would have been just business as usual.
Yeah. And I don't even,
So-
yeah, it's hard to even.
And we would have been able to make an informed decision.
And we're in the midst of significant changes, which are absolutely
Oh, they're
necessary.
huge, yeah.
But we have, under normal change circumstances, where we're under these extreme change circumstances, we're just really blind. And if you, from your work with us previous, would you say that we are operating significantly more in a blind space than we've ever had before with you?
Yeah, the information is not flowing as freely as it has in the past in regards to, the information's out there, but it's not brought to you the same way. I would agree
And
with
the
that.
information isn't necessarily in a way that provides understanding.
Yeah, because the communication's not,
Yeah, there's a lot of content,
yes.
but there's no,
Yeah.
yeah.
Not to the level it was, because we would go through an agenda and work through each line item, so you guys were in the know. Not to mention the fact that we had our pre-agenda meetings that we would work through information, so when you
There
got
was a
here.
lot more work
you-
that we did
yes.
so that we could acquire understanding.
Yes.
And what people don't understand is that work product doesn't occur. And it's really it's like cramming for a test.
Mm-hmm.
It's really difficult to understand. And so now, and actually, in the last, even as far as information request goes, we've gotten inundated with more information
Mm-hmm.
in a short window than we have had before, yet we don't have nearly as much understanding. And arguably, it's a difficult test to study
Yeah.
for.
I would agree with that, just due to the public, just the whole process of public records in regards to you requesting a lot of information, you get a stack of information, and it's a lot to go through. I agree.
And just from my own knowledge, just about every meeting, we request that you get the message that the CEO can come to our meeting so we can ask him some of these questions as well. Do you ever get a response on why he doesn't come?
I don't get a response as why he doesn't come, but
So what's the reaction once you give our request?
he says that you guys are more than welcome to come to the town hall. That's where he's relaying that information.
We still have him on our agenda, though, just so you know.
Well, please continue to ask him to attend our meeting so we can really have a start of these conversations and so
Yeah,
you're not
and
answering,
the-
you're
and the
answering questions
absolute
that,
urgency and necessity of that quality of communication being an integral and imperative part of this levy process. Right now, our process isn't even happening. It is so incomplete that whether we go and ask for a levy or not, there could be reasonably perceived a level of recklessness around it because the lack of understanding information that in our present capacity, we're gonna, if we were to make this ask, we'd be making this ask more than half blind. And that's just, it's unnecessary and unreasonable. And unfortunately, I mean, I don't know where it ends up at, but it's a very reckless way of playing with public support, public money. And it's just, in terms of Ohio, the state of Ohio, and how school districts are funded, if you took this process comparatively to any place, if this was, yeah. And yeah, so we're approaching a level of recklessness that's unnecessary. House Bill 70 doesn't mandate that we have this level of discommunication and this level of recklessness. This is by decision and by discretion. And that's just,
The level of communication, yeah, that's, I mean, it's, without having an open communication between you and the CEO or, you know.
we have no communication.
I agree.
I mean,
I
maybe
agree.
if we were talking about open,
I
or
agree.
maybe she could
And
be
I-
more open, we just have zero.
Yeah, I mean, I would think, not even to speak to that, to speak more so that, to call it reckless, I don't know that that's fair, because any school, to say, you could pull any school in the state of Ohio and say that they do not need a levy.
No, he's talking about
No, the process.
this communication model and the process.
I understand,
and
to be
the
able to
lack
hand-
of.
to-
That is absolutely
If you
reckless
had
on the
that
part
part-
of the
Without a spin.
CEO.
Yeah, without a spin.
Any place you've ever worked,
Yes.
Yeah.
if they presented the financing of a district through this kind of process, you'd say, this is absolutely insane. This is unparalleled to anything, right? And so, because we didn't have to do it this way. So, it'd be one thing, it'd be great if we could look at House Bill, because House Bill 70 I think, is very poorly written, and that it just has ambiguity everywhere, right? You have more questions than answers. But no place in it, except for by default, does it prescribe this kind of process.
I mean, in the CEO's defense, he's never really run anything, so it's kind of tough to know how to manage this process.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm just saying that in the context of, and people can say that, well, this is different now, but what is the same kind of request from a community for money. And what's unprecedented is the request is now like a blind request. Now the request is, hey, just do this because we know that every year we need more money. That is usually not the criteria of accountability by which you make decisions on whether you fund something or not. Because we could say this, I can guarantee you, so we might as well do all of the pieces now that in 2 years we need new money, right? We know we always need money because inflation and everything else, but to assume that the reason that we request money and the justification for requesting money is because we need it? If that's the case, would we ever?
You have to spell out the need, obviously, to the community, and if, like you guys said, if you're not being able to spell out that need.
We still need out to
then-
ourselves.
Yeah,
The
well, yeah,
accountability piece is-
before you can get it to them,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, what they're assuming is that we've done that. They're assuming that we do have a sense of confidence with the accountability of spending. And not just the accountability of spending, but the rationale for spending. That those rationales fit within our values. There's an assumption that we aren't doing certain kinds of investment. Even though they could be legal, they might not fit into our value system. So again, I think one of the assumptions is when a board asks a community for money, that request is in line with the values of that community. And the only way you get there is by sharing information. So if you're asking us to go make a valueless ask, and ask just based on the single proposition that our district needs money, if you're comfortable as a treasurer,
Well, no, I'd.
right, you wouldn't be.
I would never ask that,
Exactly.
no.
And so we shouldn't be put in the same position to do the same kind of blind ask with, and that's where we are.
And I would, it's not that you aren't getting the information, it's more so that we need to have a discussion about the information you're getting. Because you've received a stack of
We don't
information.
even know if
Yeah,
we've gotten the
yeah,
information. I
we've
mean, we
been
don't even have
asking for
anything,
some
we don't have anything to compare it to. I mean,
information
we do a request for 5 things, we get 3. Did we get it all? I don't know. Then we get a bunch of stuff that we might not have requested.
Yeah,
If
Well,
you,
I started bringing you or sending you or bringing you.
you gave us stuff that we've never gotten sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm getting stuff. I'm
You're
like,
getting us caught up.
I'm not getting what I asked for, but I'm getting more stuff that I've never seen. I don't even know.
2005
Yeah, it gets really confusing.
What I've been bringing is every time the CEO does an approval, which is the equivalent of what you guys would approve previously, I've been bringing those to you, and yes, in stacks.
We got a
When we
series of-
probably should have sat down and went
We
through
got a
and
series of
discussed
emails
them.
about 3 weeks ago. And they came, it was crazy because they came in one at a time. Approval of contract. Then I got another one. 3 minutes later, approval of contract. Then 5 minutes later, approval of another contract. Rather than getting these things in some kind of context that I can read them all, I'm just getting like, oh, by the way, here's that one. Oh, I'm not sure if this one goes in any sequential order, but here's that one. That's how they came.
Right. but
I can show you my email. I
They
mean,
should have came with the minutes. It was the minutes, not the contract.
So the first
but-
email had the minutes, and then,
Yeah.
Again,
The contracts were
there's-
so large that-
depending on how they came through, we had
The content is
to,
huge, you couldn't even.
Yeah,
you
we had
couldn't-
to
it wouldn't
split
fit a
them up.
document.
Right.
And then we have to sit there while this thing says downloading.
yeah. No, and that's why we didn't bring you the stack of paper, because there was a.
I'm just saying, it was almost comical. I'm not saying it was your fault. You're trying to get us stuff,
Yeah.
but again, we're
Beating
approaching
the
things
heck out of that dead horse.
from an inefficiency, when with modern technology, this could be so easy, and we're making this really difficult. And I'm sure it's much more difficult for you to try to satisfy our needs doing it this way.
Well, and with modern, you speak to modern technology, and I've brought it up in the past, but these are all available on the site. All we're doing is pulling them off the site and sending them to you.
When's the last time?
But it's-
Just stop.
Wait,
but it's true.
let's
Just stop. I mean, we're
when is
just
the
going in
last time
circles.
that you've ever been a part of a public body that's elected, and the way they receive their information is through public, wait, information, and, oh, by the way, go to the website.
You know, let me
The
tell you
fact that you
something.
would even suggest that maybe we should just go to the website,
This,
that would be the same way as if you got your information through the website.
you know, in my very first conversation with the CEO, when he got here,
Mm-hmm.
that was his exact comment to me, was, oh, you can always go to the website and get the information. I put everything on the website.
But
And
they
this,
don't-
that's his first conversation to me. So I'm slightly offended when I sit here as an elected official,
Mm-hmm.
elected by this community, to represent this
That we go to the
district and make
website.
decisions
Go read
in
it
the
in
best
the
interest of
newspaper.
children of this district.
guess go to
And
the
I have
website
somebody
with the
telling
levy.
me I can go to the website and read the website. If I wanted to go read Facebook, I'd go read Facebook too, because I can go see all that. That's not the point here. And
Oh, I
I know we're
understand.
going round and round,
We
but the
are.
point is, listen, if we need to make a decision on a levy, then we need good, effective communication, and we need our questions answered by the people that need to answer them. And if they don't have those answers, then I personally cannot go out there and put a levy out there. So they're going to have to find a way to find some money to support their administrative costs and the nonsense that they're bringing into this district, because I can't support that. You know what I mean? So, no, I don't want to go on the website, I don't want to go on Facebook, I don't want to read his tweets. You know, I mean, I'm just, you know, I'm just saying, that's funny, because he said the same thing to me in the very first conversation I had with him, and I was like, okay, now I know where we're at. So I understand
But I'm
what the
not
form
saying
of
that-
communication is going to be
yeah.
here, and that's exactly what we've gotten.
But I'm not
There's
saying,
absolutely
I
nothing.
didn't say it as, because you guys know, like I've told you in the past, I will provide you the information. I don't have a problem providing you the information. But we say, you said, what's the easiest
done.
way, the most,
This is the most efficient way for communication.
Yeah.
And
well, no, that's not the, and that's different than what you said. It's not the most efficient way for communication. It's the most efficient way for you to receive the information. Is because then I'm not sending you 4 and 5 emails because I have to piece it all together.
But again,
And
that does
I
not
would
have the-
never,
That does not have the complete information that what we get from you, though it's parsed out, is sometimes some explanation, to suggest that we will make these. So the question is what are you getting your information for? If you're getting your information to make decisions, that is absolutely ineffective, inefficient, inappropriate, if it's for decision-making. Okay, again, so our information
and the communication has,
our communication is for
this-
decision-making.
Yes, and
Which
the-
means the content qualitatively is very different than somebody who goes and looks at something on a web page. Web page is notification. It is not education, it's not being informed, it's not being given information that you can now use to apply and make decisions. I go on this thing called My Account with Cleveland Clinic, because it's my information, right? My doctor doesn't do it quite the same way. The software that he has when he's looking at my MRIs is different than the software I have, because he's got to use that information to make some other decisions, right?
Yes.
What I'm saying is the role that we play to assume or to expect or even suggest that we can get our information via that process. Even when ODE posts the scores and stuff on the website, we get a little bit more in-depth presentation, right?
Used to.
Well, and that's the
Yes,
thing.
because we're
That's
using that information for different reasons. When
what-
Joe Community gets the information,
What's lacking is the communication and the presentation.
Yes.
What I send you and what's on the website is no different than the list of what you got in the past. The difference is, it would be
it's just minus
myself.
communication
Yes.
and minus presentation and minus
Exactly.
understanding
Yes.
and minus context and minus anything that will make that information useful in our specific role.
I'm not denying that part of it, that end of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I just want I don't want the information that everybody else gets for whatever reasons they get it. We have specific reasons why we need what we need. And it's not unreasonable to request that. And I think what happens in the context of discussing this levy, we appear to be unreasonable. And I think what we're requesting not only is reasonable, but anyone else asked to do the same job would need to use that level of intentionality in viewing it.
Right.
And how dare us to make some decisions on just finances without that understanding and that quality of communication.
I don't deny that the communication isn't there. I don't deny that part of it.
That was a long way to get there.
As I was reading through this, I didn't see anything about, they haven't announced a new high school principal, or they haven't announced a principal for Southview Middle School. Is it Southview Middle School on here?
To be honest, I haven't even looked at the shit.
Okay, because I didn't.
And again, that's a
Check the
question that
website.
we really should,
The website.
Well, the meeting tonight.
that's a
Get out of here, Tom.
I do know there was some hires that were still pending, that they either haven't found the person yet or are still
Yes.
waiting for an
But Josh-
acceptance offer, things like
How do
that.
we do the high school? So the high school principal has been hired.
No.
No?
No, thanks. John.
Wow. See, I've heard.
we gotta
If
go to
it's
more
not on
town
that
hall
list, it
meetings.
hasn't, yeah, honestly.
No, is it yes or no, or no, you don't want to chime in?
There was a meeting today at 2 o'clock or 1 o'clock, and he said it hasn't been hired, they haven't hired yet.
They haven't,
but
okay,
they
so
know
again, so
who
again,
it-
and that's an
they
interesting,
know who
perfect
it is.
example, because the question is, what does hire mean? Have they been, hasn't been announced?
Been identified.
Yeah,
Has it-
well, have they identified a person? I'm sure they have. I mean, this late in the game, I'm sure they have. Has that person accepted? Have they worked out an offer? I mean, that's all part of that, honestly.
How do you negotiate an offer? What is the salary of the new principal going to be?
That I,
Again.
We have the
here's to
same
my-
range from
here's to my-
LAA.
Here's to my point, here's to my point earlier, right? So how do they negotiate a contract when the guy that oversees the finances doesn't even know what the salary is they're trying to negotiate with this individual? And you don't have to answer that. That was just my point earlier. And again, this is another point where Bill's question, listen, that's not your job to answer. You know what I mean? But you're your only resource of communication. I get it. But these are questions, Title I answers, they don't need to come from you. You know what I mean? These are
We're
questions
asking you
that
questions
should be
because you're the
coming
one
from
who's asked.
the people that
completely
actually
understand.
deal with that work. So I just,
I just asked if it was on this sheet.
good question. We don't know. No, they have not been hired.
They're not on the list for approval yet.
I didn't even look, and I just got this, I didn't even look at it yet. So is the assistant principal on here? I think,
For,
For the high school? Because I was informed
Well,
of, see, I don't know what I'm
I
getting.
think there's a
official-
couple of deans on there for the high school, that, yeah.
We don't have to approve that anyway.
I know we don't, yeah, we don't. approve.
There's one dean of academics on here, one dean of scholar and family, and one dean of scholar and family. So there's still
We're
some,
losing the media because they got to go to other meetings that they've been invited to. They were welcome to come
there's
to.
still some deans to be hired,
Yeah,
yes.
that's always the case. I mean, that's not new
Yeah.
to us.
No.
That things aren't completed, there's some that's still in process.
Executive
Again, it's just-
Director
it's
of
just
Lorain
we're in
High
such
School
a
announced.
blind place
Of course.
that we're blind to what we're blind to.
You know, we deal with so much rumor that it's,
I don't know, and that, to be honest, that's a lot of the disconnect. Some
That's the
of,
only thing I get is rumor. I don't get any direct information. I get all,
and I know, and I think that was some of the disconnect in the communication early on too, is you were asking
So to
questions.
answer your question, the Executive Director of Secondary Academies has just been announced. His name is Daniel Garvey.
There you go.
Shocking that it's somebody from out of town, and I can only imagine where he's from. No, native of Cleveland. Native of Cleveland. That doesn't tell you where he just came from.
it got posted someplace.
He's either, what is that organization called?
Teach for America?
Teach for America or some charter school, I guarantee you. I'll put my house on it. Moving on, you have another item, 8.03. Would you like us to approve that?
Yeah, you should have took the first stab at
Well,
it.
do you want to go through the forecast, or are you guys good with that?
No, get moving. No, we've already did the forecast.
Okay.
Unless it's changed in the last
Well, I was just going to give you.
couple weeks.
No,
I want to see the forecast after the wrap up. That's when I would like to see it.
after,
When you wrap everything up in June.
oh, well, you want to know how actuals finish out, you mean? Not
Yeah.
the forecast, but,
Yeah.
yeah, and I'll bring you the
Forecast is
financials,
just a
and we can
prediction.
discuss the financials.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I'll bring, because the financials with that, the financials
Daniel
is the
Garvey.
SM2, and the SM2 aligned to the forecast. We can talk line by line through that, and you'll know how much we're carrying over
put it
and all
up on the
that.
board
Wonder
and
if his
everything.
resume's
I'd
on
be
our
happy to.
Like
website.
Gail used to do, and then we could ask you
Did he
questions.
he went through the SM2s up on the board like that?
Oh, he put a lot of stuff on. He did a lot of modeling on there.
I just hated when he would bake stuff in.
He could, yeah, he
Let me bake this in.
he could remove it, he could remove it, he could put it in there, he could change the percentage on everything.
That's all, and
Yeah.
what you saw was the same thing that every treasurer, with the cogs moving in his head, like, do I want to put, how much risk do I want to build in, how much, that's normal.
Oh, he was concerned,
Let's look at this
he
with the
wasn't
renewal.
concerned.
Let's look at what the
He was
Extremely
renewal.
ultra
It's
conservative.
beyond conservative.
Yes,
Yeah.
That's because he found
Entertaining.
$250,000 in a parking lot one time.
and that's just, I mean, you saw my learning curve with my first forecast to my second. So I would never fault Dale for being conservative, because,
Yeah.
I mean, just the differential when you look at going from a small district to a large district, and you see the amount of risk you're willing to take.
Things can change
because,
very
yeah,
drastically,
well,
significantly.
And it's not even about the change, it's about the unknowns and those big swings. You didn't see in a small district a $2 million swing, you see those here. So you can't.
Be it property
You have to
taxes,
properly.
collections, or anything.
Yeah.
Any numbers.
Open enrollment, community school, I mean, everything.
I mean, the bottom line is I want to
I see her
know,
eyeballing me.
I want to know at the end of the year if we're still solvent, if we're really cost neutral. If we're not cost neutral, I'm not going to be surprised.
Well, and it's,
Okay, I don't see how you can, because see, he's affording things that I don't think we could have ever afforded, but somehow it's happening now, okay? But
it's being cost neutral is way overrated.
I want to,
Well, and
I mean,
we're saying cost neutral, but, I mean, truthfully, there's always increases, percent increases,
that's why I
step
don't know why anybody would even
increases.
say cost neutral.
But I don't think it's cost neutral of factoring in those increases, because those are cost, the cost neutral piece of it is, there's no increase to the forecast, and all those things were already built into the forecast.
We want to be cost
That's-
effective.
I mean, that's
We
the
want to
difference.
effectively spend money, but
True.
when you start throwing out
And it-
neutral.
You're
it's a
still,
buzzword.
because we're still aligned to the negotiated agreements, there's
Yeah.
bargained percent increases, so
So-
those are factored into the forecast.
All right,
Okay.
good enough.
Yeah, that horse ain't moving.
No. Also on there, is a proposed tax budget for Lorain Public Library, and that's just something that we need to approve. I don't know if there's anything to add to that, but it's pretty self-explanatory. It's their budget. So I need a motion to approve 8.03.
so move.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Sturgill?
Yes,
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Ballard?
Yes.
Mr. Demakia?
Yes,
Thank you.
you're welcome. The only other thing, and
There was never any doubt. There was never any doubt.
the only other thing that I do want to bring up is, I'm gathering, is that I emailed everybody the TIF proposal from Lorain City about the Broadway building. Again, we discussed that some time ago about the former project. Now they have a new project with Aerial,
Some company,
yeah, company that wants to come in. And, my point with that TIF is, you can look at it. Hopefully you guys looked at it. I read through it and went over it. It's looking at a probably close to $8 million 30-year tax abatement. Now, my point is, how long has that building sat there vacant, taking up space, littering in the city, and we're not getting any tax revenue off of that building, not much at all. So, I mean, for me, I personally don't have a problem with it, but again, it's not on our agenda. If that is something that you guys are prepared to discuss, obviously, the city can't move forward, and city council can't discuss it without our approval of that 100% 30-year tax abatement. So again, it's up to you guys. I'm okay either way with whatever we do. I mean, I think it's good for the city.
Helpful, I mean, if it doesn't clog the wheel too much. I don't know that there's anything different in this scenario than the previous,
Correct.
but we haven't necessarily been told that either. So was this something that Giardini reviewed, or was it our tax attorney who reviewed?
I just
We
saw
we had a
it. I don't
preview.
know.
It came directly, it came directly from City Hall and the law director.
So what I would like
It did
is-
get sent to Mr. Giardini as well.
So what I would prefer is if we get just a simple explanation, explaining exactly what money we're deferring. Is for 30 years. And the other thing, I think in some of them, there was 100%, there were other arrangements that talked about
Payments.
how it was to be done. And I mean, how was this one structured? I think before, whatever monies came into the city, we actually got those, because wasn't this the additional tax revenue on the increase of property value? Or remember that? At one of them, we got the same property value, but what we didn't get was the increase based on the new value.
Yes.
And I don't know if we're looking at apples and apples, I have no
What we
idea.
can do is we can schedule a special board meeting to
Yeah.
just discuss that.
Yep.
And maybe answer it, and then go over and hopefully approve it.
Because if we're
But,
gonna make an $8 million decision, we wouldn't necessarily be getting.
That's on the
$8 million.
renovations of that
Right,
building.
and that's what we want to be clear about, because when you throw that number out there, like 8 million, somebody heard that.
I can do a calculation based
Yeah.
on current property value.
Somebody heard that, and they're thinking we're throwing away $8 million, and that's not
No.
Yeah,
true.
no, that's not true at all.
Right, so again, we don't want to,
Yeah.
It's not that much. Yeah, I can do a calculation. I'll take it
because it
back.
wasn't that
look
much
at
that
it.
we were getting.
I'll
No.
reach out
I mean,
to,
I'm sorry, it wasn't that much we were losing.
correct.
It's not that much that we're losing, not to mention the fact that the property values that impacts surrounding it, so it's almost a negative.
And again, I want to do it because we wanted to do it before, and it made sense before. I just think we need to make sure that
Yes.
we get the same deal, and that, and I just don't, honestly, I don't know.
Very minimal to lose. We have a lot to gain by that building improving, for sure.
And then we just did the one.
And we'll look at scheduling a special board meeting, preferably before City Council would like to look at it on the 18th, which is the same day as our.
And Tony, if you
I-
could maybe meet with them, because remember, before you were here, there was supposed to be this spreadsheet that had all these on there, and we talked about, there were certain ones that we would do, certain ones we wouldn't.
Well,
It was supposed to be all that.
It was an
around this.
agreement with the city that the city would actually evaluate the opportunities at
Right.
TIFs
Yeah.
and not bring anything to us that they didn't think was worth, you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
and we were
We would
that
only see
criteria.
the top priority.
Right,
The
and we-
other ones, they wouldn't
right,
even
and we
bring
would-
to us
and we
for
would
that.
collectively define what that criteria was.
Right.
Well, what happens is we're still doing TIFs, but they never did that part yet.
Yeah. Well,
Well, because we'll get, and we always get them like right at the end of the calendar year, because they have to have them acted upon before the, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I'm good.
All right. So then we'll schedule something. I'll talk to them
New
and figure it
director
out.
straight from Teach for America.
Stop it.
That's the text I just got.
I told you. I should have bet the house. Nobody wanted to bet me?
Nobody likes you.
Teach for America. You know what? Can we rename Lorain City Schools Teach for America? That's just unreal to me. Let's just adjourn this meeting before
Second.
I get, oh, that's right. I would ask for new business, but I don't think we have any. No committee reports because we don't have any committees.
Well-
And,
New business. We'll put the TIF under new business, so that
Yeah,
was,
softball
that was
game
the new
gets worse.
business.
yeah, okay. Second hearing of the public.
Andy Dillon, 228 Delaware Avenue, Lorain, Ohio, 44052. I thought I was going to die over here. I could close my eyes. I thought Jim Smith was back.
Are you referring to me? Listen,
No, really, not, just at the beginning when you were saying about not voting for Levy, because he was always.
Yeah, I didn't say I would-
against it. No,
yeah, yeah.
I know, but don't get it. I'm just joking.
I can't believe you just made that reference.
Don't get them
You're
wound up
lucky the
again,
media's
please.
gone, and now we're live, and you just made that comment live. You,
Yeah, but I'm
oh,
sure all
me.
the
Don't,
other people
don't get them
were
wound
going.
up again, please.
Yeah, I'm trying to,
I thought, wait, is Jim
He's
here?
looking, he acting like his brother Jim.
No, really.
Yeah.
Going back to the levy,
Yes.
just for FYI, within the public where I'm always out, they want to see what's going to happen with his plan. I think it's going to be hard to pass a levy because they want to see his plan in process. Right now, there's not any plan yet in process, so how do you expect the public to vote on something they haven't seen? All they've seen is people being hired, and that's what they've said to me. That's all they've seen is people being hired and local people not being hired.
This place.
Yeah, so that's what I've been hearing out there.
Wow.
So I really do feel it would be a battle for November. You know, like, you guys might say yes to it, and I'm never a negative Nelly, you know that. But that's what I've been hearing a lot of everywhere I go. And believe me, you guys know I'm involved in all kinds of groups. I'm out there
I've been getting the same
all the
feedback.
time. And that's what
there are a
they're
lot more
concerned
people paying
about.
attention to what's going on in this district
what
than
they realize.
show up to these meetings or those town
Right,
hall
there's
meetings, to be
well,
honest
a lot
with
of
you.
people don't want to come to meetings, but they pay attention to what's in the paper or what they hear. And that's what I'm afraid of, that it's going to be a really hard battle. But I'm always up for anything, you know. I
We
don't
know you
get
are.
in the way, you know, but one thing though is that I really wanted to know is that if the state enforced us to have to do all this, and we're doing the hiring and this and that, where's the state money then? Why aren't they supporting us that way then?
Good question.
You know, and then also, who does Mr. Hardy report to?
God.
The ADC.
The governor. He don't even report to the ADC. That's not accurate. The ADC's only responsibility was to search and select. They can fire him.
Yeah, let me.
But they
It's-
don't like.
Who's, the question is, who's he accountable to?
Yeah,
Reporting could be, here's a report. But the question that you're asking is a question that everyone's asking, is what is the accountability piece?
okay, so I guess like for Josh, I know you're in the middle, but like, who's looking to see what kind of money is being spent?
Nobody.
Like once,
So Josh,
In what regard?
you're accountable to the CEO, in a certain regard, and you're accountable to this board, by statute.
Yes, for different
and the
aspects of my
board, and the
job.
board is accountable to the citizens.
Right. So we've clearly defined the treasurer position, right?
Right.
And the new title you have, which is that's why they didn't take your treasurer title away, because they couldn't. It wasn't their stake.
Yes.
So, but the CEO doesn't have, so Josh has accountability pieces. The CEO doesn't. And not just this CEO, the CEO in House Bill 70 doesn't.
So then what I'm saying is that nobody gets a breakdown of revenues
He can
and
just,
expenses.
so, to sum it up, he can just spend how he wants to spend with zero
Without
accountability.
approval.
Without
Now, he
approval.
might share with us.
He doesn't need
but it's
approval
not-
from anybody.
Doesn't need approval.
So he hands out letters that say 21 administrators, but Josh, who has the other number, says, well, maybe it's not really 21. And then, but in all the town hall meetings, it's going to
Well-
be 21 with
Okay,
these
now
nice,
about
beautiful
that,
rainbow.
The town hall meeting, I explained to him that I can't attend those town hall meetings
Mm-hmm.
because I have other things to do and I don't expect him to change it, but I would think that seeing that the public comes to these meetings also, that he could come then and explain stuff to us
Yeah, that's-
that aren't able to meet the town hall meetings.
We're welcome to come to the town hall meetings.
No, I'm sorry, I can't.
Yeah, I agree. Me
You
either.
know?
Yeah.
I've been,
I've seen-
I've
You
been.
know?
I've been.
I've
So-
seen some of the town hall meetings. It's like a dog and pony show, just like the
But I
search
think what you're
process
striking
was.
me on is a challenge that I think just about anybody who works in business is, everybody needs to be accountable to somebody.
Right.
And the absence of accountability is not a prescription for success. I mean, if you're accountable to nobody, that's not a good thing. If I'm accountable to no one, that's not a good thing. It just doesn't,
Well, I'm just saying that, like, because we are citizens also, that he might not agree that he has to come to the board meeting to see you, but he should come to the board meeting to see us.
well, I think the other question is, who pays his salary? There's always a level of accountability based on who hired you or fired or paid you. So the state pays his salary. So is he accountable to ODE? Probably. If they could hold him, why? Because they write the check that pays us. The CEO, unlike a superintendent, is not an employee of our direct community.
Yeah, but the only thing is that the state gets money somewhere.
Right.
Now,
and
where do they get that money
indirectly from us,
Who's
yes.
saying they don't take it from
I
us?
pay state taxes.
Right, so yeah, exactly.
The money is coming from somewhere, so somewhere down the line, I think the whole problem is all this unaccountability
It's a nice big scam.
flowing somewhere in the
Yeah.
clouds.
It's a big scam in
Yeah.
public education.
Yeah.
Criminal at best. But,
Well, I'm not gonna go that far, but,
no.
it's just disappointing, and I do feel that,
Organized.
we're gonna be,
it, did you,
I mean, like, you guys, like, how much money does it cost to put it on the ballot? 20,000? Or it depends on other people, if they're on the ballot.
How many other
It depends on the election and how much you're sharing it and spread it,
You share the
yeah.
money with everybody
And then you have a
else.
percentage based on what our take is.
Yes.
There's a collection fee that's involved. There's all-
right.
And what other thing, I was glad to see in the paper that the school board was represented at the graduation.
Well, since you brought that up,
Uh-oh, was that a source of?
no,
I
not at
was
all.
glad to see that.
Listen, you know, at the end of the day, graduation, and we are all there, that's why we all do what we do, is to see our students be successful in our district. And this district graduated 440-plus students. We had students get almost $2 million in scholarships, going on to other colleges. We saw how many students that are moving on to the armed forces. We had a lot of great students, and, it was a good ceremony. All of our speakers were brilliant. They did an excellent job, and, unfortunately, we spent, an hour and some minutes talking about this kind of stuff when, be honest with you, people say, why don't we just get back to children? None of this is really about the children, to be honest with you.
Right,
It's
exactly.
politics and business at best. And, last night was a great event, and there was a lot of people there. It went off well. It was smooth. It was really nice to see these kids graduate, and they're all excited, and that's why we do. And the only unfortunate part was I only saw one commission member there to see our scholars graduate, and that was Cawthon. But he's a teacher.
That's why, like, I do what I do, it's for the kids. And that's why,
That takes in.
I'm working with Mr. Hardy and Jeff Hawks for a homecoming. And I like it because the kids are involved. And when I went there, they're a great group of kids, you know, and I like the way they voice their opinion, and if they don't agree, kind of reminds me of like here. But it's the kids, but I'm very proud of the kids because they're, you know, sophomores, juniors, seniors, and I thought, gee, this is great. So that's why I'm working with them. We're going to have that homecoming festivity the day of the football game, where they're going to have floats for each class. We're going to have competition. We're going to have a parade, obviously the band, with the floats, and we're going to ask other people to join in, like the Alumni Association, Sports Hall of Fame, and that. For the kids behind the stadium, we're going to have a fenced-in area for them to have festival games and that, and we're going to give like a big door prize at halftime to one of the students that were there. And you know, the Lorain Alumni Association is inducting 12 people into their organization as distinguished alumni, and they'll be put down here on the wall, their pictures. So the students now, they're talking about Hall of Honor or whatever, and I thought that's great, you know, and then they had great discussions. I mean, the kids here are great, people just don't see it. You know, they don't bother to come and do anything with them. So we're going to do all that.
Good.
And then hopefully we'll get the bonfire back. I still haven't, that's not a dead issue to be. This year, it won't happen, but maybe in years to come, we'll get it back. But,
Well, thank you
you
for
know,
all that you're
it's
trying
the
to put
kids.
together.
That's why I'm doing it for the kids.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Are you still holding your meetings for the
No, I'm waiting to hear.
18th of June?
No. Listen, I've done this long enough that I can do it in my sleep. The next day could
Got
be
it.
done, you know? And really, the only reason why I held the two was one about the bonfire, and one to explain to the people that we're not the ones that decide to put the levy on, because they kept on asking me, well, why aren't you putting that levy on? And I said, well, it's not my job to put the levy on, it's the school board to say, and then we work at it. So I explained to them all the work we would have to do. And then I waited to see, and I'm going to wait till we're done working with the kids and then bring this committee in to help with the festivities, so we have adults in that, so.
Sure.
Hopefully you guys will be involved too. I mean, there's no reason not to.
Yeah, thank you.
You know.
Absolutely.
Okay. Currently, our next board meeting is scheduled for June 18th at 5 o'clock right here. There may be a special board meeting. If you do have specific questions around that TIF, can you email them to me? And then I'll get with Tony Giardini and
Yeah, and
Josh.
again, basically, if he just gives us a general report, and he could send that to us.
Yeah,
And then
okay.
we could, and that'll simply state what costs we're deferring, what we normally would take.
Yeah.
I think I prepared,
You might-
I still have a template from
Okay.
when we did the previous
Yep.
TIF.
Same thing.
And I'll
It's the
put all
same-
that together
Yep. No
financially.
information, just-
And then as soon as I have that, you know, we can send it out to everybody, and then we'll schedule a special board meeting. If it's before the 18th, then we'll do it then. And any business on the 18th, we'll just put on to that special and
Push it forward.
cancel the 18th if we
Would you
need be.
please make sure that we formally invite our CEO to our next meeting, please? And every meeting going forward.
What do you want me to do? Send a greeting card?
Just make,
I mean,
that's what it takes.
I mean, I don't
I
understand.
would just like, from the
You know,
chair,
I'm not
I
gonna
would
get-
just, from the chair, would like you to make sure that you make that presentation
Yes, can you please formally invite the CEO
again.
again?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Support.
Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Ballard?
Yes.
Mr. Demakia?
No.
Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
He's back.
This has been a production of Lorain City Schools TV 20 WLCS.